Hello everybody, it's Retro DM Ray. How y'all doing today? I hope this finds you well and being greatly blessed. I thought I'd come back with you today while I'm out traveling around and just share with you the example of play from the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition Player's Handbook. And then afterwards I'm going to ask a question, but I'll just read through it right now. If you've got your handbook, you can open it up to page 10 and follow along in the Jeff Easley cover version, that is, which is my nostalgic favorite version. So here we go. So it starts out, it says, to further clarify what really goes on during an AD&D game, read the following example. This is typical of the sort of action that occurs during a playing session. Shortly before this example begins, 3 player characters fought a skirmish with a were-rat, a creature similar to a werewolf, but which becomes an enormous rat instead of a wolf. The were-rat was wounded and fled down a tunnel. The characters are in pursuit. The group includes 2 fighters and a cleric. Fighter 1 is the group's leader. DM, you've been following this tunnel for about 120 yards. The water on the floor is ankle deep and very cold. Now and then you feel something brush against your foot. The smell of decay is getting stronger. The tunnel is gradually filling with a cold mist. Fighter 1. I don't like this at all. Can we see anything up ahead that looks like a doorway or a branch in the tunnel? DM. Within the range of your torchlight, the tunnel is more or less straight. You don't see any branches or doorways. Cleric. The were-rat we hit had to come this way. There's nowhere else for it to go. Fighter 1. Unless we missed a hidden door along the way. I hate this place. It gives me the creeps. Fighter 2. We have to track down that were-rat. I say we keep going. Fighter 1. Okay, we keep moving down the tunnel, but keep your eyes open for anything that might be a door. DM. Another 30 or 35 yards down the tunnel. You find a stone block on the floor. Fighter 1. A block? I take a closer look. DM. It's a cut block about 12 by 16 inches and 18 inches or so high. It looks like a different kind of rock than the rest of the tunnel. Fighter 2. Where is it? Is it in the center of the tunnel or off to the side? DM. It's right up against the side. Fighter 1. Can I move it? DM checking the character's strength score. Yeah, you can push it around without too much trouble. Fighter 1. This is obviously a marker of some sort. I want to check this area for secret doors. Spread out and examine the walls. DM rolls several dice behind his rulebook where players can't see the results. Nobody finds anything unusual along the walls. Fighter 1. Has to be here somewhere. What about the ceiling? DM, you can't reach the ceiling. It's about a foot beyond your reach. Cleric. Of course! That block isn't a marker, it's a step. I climb up on the block and start prodding the ceiling. DM, rolling a few more dice. You poke around for 20 seconds or so, then suddenly part of the tunnel roof shifts. You found a panel that lifts away. Fighter 1. Open it very carefully. Cleric. I pop it up a few inches and push it aside slowly. Can I see anything? DM. Your head is still below the level of the opening, but you see some dim light from one side. Fighter 1. We boost him up so he can get a better look. DM. Okay, your friends boost you up into the room. Fighter 1. No, we boost him just high enough to get his head through the opening. DM. Okay, you boost him up a foot. The 2 of you are each holding one of his legs. Cleric, you see another tunnel, pretty much like the one you were in, but it only goes off in one direction. There's a doorway about 10 yards away with a soft light inside. A line of muddy paw prints leads from the hole you're in to the doorway. Cleric. Fine. I want the fighters to go first. DM. As they're lowering you back to the block, everyone hears some grunts, splashing, and clanking weapons coming from further down the lower tunnel. They seem to be closing fast. Cleric. Up! Push me back up through the hole. I grab the ledge and haul myself up. I'll help pull the next guy up. All 3 characters scramble up through the hole. DM. What about the panel? Fighter 1. We push it back into place. DM. It slides back into its slot with a nice loud clunk. The grunting from below gets a little louder. Fighter 1. Great, they heard it. Cleric, get over here and stand on this panel. We're going to check out that doorway. DM, Cleric, you hear some shouting and shuffling around below you. Then there's a thump, and the panel you're standing on lurches. Cleric, they're trying to batter it open. DM to the fighters, when you peer around the doorway, you see a small, dirty room with a small cot, a table, and a couple of stools. On the cot is a were-rat curled up into a ball. Its back is towards you. There's another door in the far wall, and a small gong in the corner. Fighter 1, is the were-rat moving? DM, not a bit. Cleric, the panel just thumped again. You can see a little crack in it now. Cleric, do something quick, you guys. When this panel starts coming apart, I'm getting off of it. Fighter 1, okay already. I step into the room and prod the were-rat with my shield. What happens? DM, nothing. You see blood on the cot. Fighter 1, is this the same were-rat we fought before? DM, well, who knows? All were-rats look the same to you. Cleric, the panel thumps again. That crack's looking really big. Cleric, that's it. I get off the panel. I'm moving into the room with everybody else. DM, there's a tremendous smash, and you hear chunks of rock banging around out in the corridor, followed by lots of snarling and squeaking. You see flashes of torchlight and were-rat shadows through the doorway. Fighter 1, all right, the other fighter and I move up to block the doorway. That's the narrowest area. They can only come through 1 or 2 at a time. Cleric, you stay in the room and be ready with your spells. Fighter 2, at last, a decent stand-up fight. DM, as the first were-rat appears in the doorway with a spear in his paws, you hear a slam behind you. Cleric, I spin around. What is it? DM, the door in the back of the room is broken off its hinges. Standing in the doorway, holding a mace in each paw, is the biggest, ugliest were-rat you have ever seen. A couple more pairs of red eyes are shining through the darkness behind him. He's licking his chops in a way that you find very unsettling. Cleric, ah! I scream the name of my deity at the top of my lungs and then flip over the cot with the dead were-rat on it so the body lands in front of him. I've got to have some help here, guys. Fighter 1 to Fighter 2, help him, I'll handle this into the room. To DM, I'm attacking the were-rat in the doorway. DM, while Fighter 2 is switching positions, the big were-rat looks at the body of the floor and his jaw drops. He looks back up and says, That's Ignatz! He was my brother! You killed my brother! Then he raises both maces and he leaps at you. At this point, a ferocious melee breaks out. The DM uses the combat rules to play out the battle. If the characters survive, they can continue on whatever course they choose. So, first of all, I think the only other example of play that I remember is in BX. I mean, the basic book, there's 2 different sections. Mulvey has in there of example of play that are split between the book. And then in Beckme, Frank Mincer has some example of play in there. I don't know that it's in any of the other editions of the game. You can put that in the comments if you know that there are other examples of play that are written out in the books. I'm not aware of any. I do know that I looked through 5th edition, and sadly I didn't see it. So here's the thing. This says, to further clarify what really goes on during an AD&D game, and this is typical. So, I guess the question becomes, for you and your tables, was this how it typically went? Was this how it could go? Or was this how it should go? And I think I want to emphasize the should go part for this reason. Dungeons & Dragons is first and foremost a role-playing game. Now, I'm not saying that dice are not involved, mechanics are not involved, rule speak, quote-unquote, is not involved or wasn't a thing. Sitting and looking up stuff from time to time wasn't a thing. All of those things. And homebrew, house rulings, all those kinds of things were not a thing, right? But it was a role-playing game where you were supposed to be having as much verisimilitude as you could have when you were playing, meaning you were playing a role, and so you needed to kind of play that role, right? How would you react in that given situation, okay? And this example of play gives that to you really well. Interestingly here, I hear that one fighter, and with the shield, and I always think of the cowardly fighter in the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the 80s. That's just me. I don't know that the player was actually intending that, but that's kind of the way I read that when I read that. But when he says, when Zeb Cook here says that to further clarify what really goes on, and then he says this is the typical sort of action that occurs, does he mean that this example of play, like I said, is it typical? Is it could go this way, or is it should go this way? And I would again argue that it should go this way. That's just my personal humble opinion. You can have your own. But I think if the games go this way, as I think they should, AD&D 2nd Edition was a very good game, in my opinion. It could get off the rails pretty easily. It could get overstuffed with a lot of the splat books, quote unquote, if you want to call them that, and all that type of stuff. And it could get bloat with all the other things that came out. And certainly there was bloated amounts of setting stuff and all this crazy stuff going on for sales and all that. And I get all of that. But the way we played was this example of play right here. Now, we had players who would show up at the game and they wanted to just rules talk the whole entire time. They never talked in character. They never talked like this. They never played like this. Those were ones that tended to not last very long on our table. Tended to be that the players kind of got on them more than I ever needed to. But your mileage may vary on that. But I just really like this example of play, and I like the example of play that's in BX and in BECME, because they're all representative of kind of how this old school play works, and I think how it should work, and it enriches the game, and so I just think it's really important to have this, and I think it says something about the modern systems that they don't have it. So I think that really says something very clearly, at least it does to me. And so I don't know what your opinions are, what your thoughts are about that. I'm glad to be with you on the channel today to be able to share this. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give me a thumbs up and that like there. Give me a comment. Certainly give me a share for those who you know that are around within your circle of friends or contacts, please, to continue to grow the channel. I'm a little over 700. I'd love to hit that 1,000 mark. But ultimately, I'm just doing this because I just love this game. And so I hope you do too, and you continue to like this content. Check the things in the description for the video and ways to support me and my family as we go and do this. And as always, prosper, good gaming. Take care. God bless. Later.